Hey everyone, Rotten Roman here with a chess video about weak color complex and how you can use it to your advantage during your endgames. A weak colored complex is defined as an overwhelming weakness of the squares of a certain color. Now, this is often paired with a bad bishop. Most of you guys probably know what a bad bishop is. It's when your pawns are stuck on the same color as the square your bishop controls. For example, if you have a white bishop and your pawns are stuck on white squares, then it's considered a bad bishop. Bad bishops are often very passive, and most players know to avoid getting stuck with a bad bishop in the endgame. During an endgame with few pieces remaining on the board, a weak color complex can oftentimes result in a huge advantage for the player that can capitalize on the weakened colored squares. I'll show you a position that occurred in a recent game of mine, so you can have a better understanding of what a weak color complex is, and how you can use it in your own games to take advantage of the position. Alright, let's take a look at the position now. It's about move 60. It's been a long tactical struggle in the middle game. A lot of maneuvering, a lot of positional changes, but white just forced the exchange on b5, and we've settled down into an endgame. I have a knight, and my opponent has a bishop. Looking at the position for a glance, a moment, you can see that this bishop is horribly bad because it's stuck on the same colors as the pawns. This means that the bishop is stuck defending the pawns passively rather than aggressively trying to attack white's pawns. Also notice that the white knight here is attacking the pawn here, forcing black to defend the pawn. Also, notice that the white pawns cannot be attacked by the bishop. Thinking about what I said about weak color complex, you can realize that since the black bishop and the black pawns can only fight for control of the black squares, you realize that the weak color complex in this position are the white squares. Now, if you reach this position, there's a somewhat easy manner from which you can take total advantage of the position to win. White is totally winning here. What you simply have to do is invade via the white squares. For example, march your king over the white squares and into the enemy position. Black cannot use his bishop or his pawns to stop the white squared invasion. He would have to rely on his king to stop it, but overall, the king is not a well-rounded piece to halt a white square invasion, because he can be easily pushed back. Let's go over my game and see what happened in the game. I'll show you how I use a white squared invasion. Alright, in this position it's white to move. I moved king f3, just starting the white squared invasion immediately. Black played king g6. He's trying to bust open the king side. Now, of course, this doesn't work. It's obvious that he's going to push h5. However, the defense is even more obvious, so you don't even have to worry about that. Should black have run to the queen side? Doesn't make a difference overall. Still, white can win whether black defends the queen side or goes for the king side. I ignore the threat, continue my invasion, king e3. I'm preparing to wrap around the light squares. Alright, he plays h5. Obviously, the defense, h3. Locks up the king side entirely. Blackhead doesn't have a plan in sight. He's blowing into thin air. I have the advantage. He trades. Now he starts moving towards the queen side. Now, I play knight c7. This is a rather annoying move for him because it blocks these two access points to the queen side. However, black has to play bishop d8. By playing this, he vacates the e7 square for his king and threatens the knight. But knight e6 creates a beautiful outpost for the knight, threatening the bishop here and the pawn here. Black is again forced into a passive position. He plays king a8. He's hoping that I exchange here. Of course, it doesn't take a grandmaster to realize that exchanging there does not favor white. White just has to relax, continue the invasion, king d3. Even if black wanted to activate his dark squared bishop, perhaps moving it towards here, it doesn't help. I'm just going to march up the white squares, get into his position. His black bishop shouldn't, it's like it's not even on the board. It doesn't matter right now. He plays king d7, trying to lock up the position. He's trying to just chill out on the side right there, just telling me, look dude, you're not going to break in. But white can get in here. Black can only delay the inevitable. King c4 continues the march. Now bishop e7 allows black, to continue moving his king towards the queen side to block more squares from white. However, it's not enough. It's too late. King b5. Continue the white squared invasion. Now black simply moves bishop d8. Now, this in of itself is the losing move again. It doesn't help. It simply gives white a forced win. But there's not much else he can do. The most annoying tactic he can use is simply hop back and forth with the bishop, for example. But white just has to maneuver. He can force black to be pushed back. So he moves bishop d8. Of course, moving king c8 allows white to simply maneuver into the king side. Alright. Now the next move is obvious. Knight takes. King takes back, forced. King c6, king e7. Triangulate the position. And black resigns. Not much else he can do right here. So, going back to the position, king king g3. Doesn't take a wise man to realize that the weak squares are the white squares. Immediately looking at the position, you can realize that the white squares are overwhelmingly weak for black. If you're in this type of position, a couple rules are: try to hug the white squares. Black cannot defend those white squares. You are set. Black can just move, defend the black squares, but the white squares are good for the taking. Also, if you notice ahead, look at this. All my pieces are on the white squares. I'm taking full advantage of the fact that the white squares are the weak colored complex here. Black cannot even fight for the white squares. White is totally dominating the white squares here. In conclusion, a weak color complex often involves a bad bishop. Notice the bad bishop here for black. Notice the pawns here stuck on those squares. Also, a weak color complex is the fact that black cannot use his pieces to defend the squares. In this case, it's the white squares, because the black bishop can only control the black squares, and the black pawns here can only defend the black squares as well, because they're stuck on these squares. If you're in this type of position, simply march your king. Usually it's the king in the endgame. March your king through the position on the white squares. You can simply march your king through. There is nothing he can do about it. I hope you enjoyed this video and understand a little bit more about weak color complexes. I'll see you all later.